What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, it's June, the Abyss. We go through this every single day. Well, today, there's at least one theory floating around that you got to talk about and potentially shut down. And then there's a big question surrounding Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they will look like in 2025, but more importantly, what kind of control or lack thereof their quarterback will have on the field. We're going to dive into what to expect from Aaron Rodgers and company this season. It's a great one here in the Berg. Been a great week. I'll ask you as I do every day, as I try not to sneeze again. How you feeling, my friend?
I am good. It feels like spring has sprung as I appear to be slightly less sweaty. Sweatshirt season's still very much in, my friends. But no, I'm feeling good. I was able to get a lot of outside work done today and not feel
Beautiful.
like death was upon me, which is just a nice welcome feeling.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm feeling good. As far as the Abyss goes, yeah, I mean, we are very much in it, but I'm finding time in things to fill up my day with, as we just drag on by, brother. But I'm happy to talk about this couple exciting topics that you threw my way before we started recording.
Yes, sir. I will say that it is that time of year. It's wild because a couple of years ago, I still get texts from people every now and then. They're like, yo, dude, they're trying to golf at noon this time of year. And I'm like, look at guys, a couple of years ago, that sounded like a real good time. You want to know what sounds real nice right now? Sleeping sounds fantastic. I am about 12:30 to about 12:50 nap type of guy here. 20 minute snooze, but I think that's a good.
It's a power nap.
It's a power nap. You need them. You don't get those during the season. I hear you. We are in the abyss. It feels good. Hope everybody is enjoying what has become a very nice time in Pittsburgh. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football as we move forward here. Brooke Pryor of ESPN dropped a nugget that I'm not going to lie, correlates to stuff we've talked about over the last week or so perfectly, but in the wrong way. We have mentioned quarterbacks and plans and circumstances that the Pittsburgh Steelers should avoid at all costs. Well, one of them, Brooke Pryor believes, potentially could be an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if this whole situation doesn't clear itself. Looking forward to next year, she said top tier quarterbacks don't often hit free agency, and 2026 isn't an expectation. Former first round pick Daniel Jones, who signed a 1-year deal in Indianapolis, is the best available free agent of the 2026 class so far. Other quarterbacks, though, that could be available in releases or trades: Anthony Richardson Sr., Indianapolis's other quarterback, and its 2023 first round pick, is competing with Jones for the starting job. Whoever comes in second could be available. She hints at the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts are at least one of their quarterbacks figuring this thing out. And I'll ask you, as we've talked Anthony Richardson and other quarterbacks for a long time on this show. He has never once been mentioned as a name the Pittsburgh Steelers should go get. And otherwise, in actuality, has been named a warning that the Pittsburgh Steelers should avoid at maybe all costs. Him and Daniel Jones. Two-parter here for you. I want your reaction on her naming, and shout out Brooke, dude. She's a phenomenal journalist. Mm-hmm. I want your reaction on naming Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones options in 2026. And then I want to know how bad it could be if either of them is an outcome.
So my favorite part of the article from Brooke, and I'm a big fan of Brooks at all. This is not me shading her at all. But my favorite part was whoever comes in second could be available, as if there is some long line already forming to acquire the backup quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. If there is a race, or if there is some sort of bidding war for Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson Sr., the NFL's in dire straits. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in dire straits. Those are two very, Richardson he's what, 24, 23 right now? So he
23.
has 23, thank you. So he has, time to figure it out, so to speak. And Daniel Jones has, I think, 70 games of NFL experience under his belt. So he is what he is. I find it very difficult to believe that either one would be an option that, it doesn't bring me any sort of optimism or joy. It makes me feel like we might be scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel in that situation.
Yeah.
So that gave me a good chuckle reading that line, as if there will be any sort of like courting process or, people engaging in talks to acquire Anthony Richardson Sr.
Yeah.
after he plays 4 games again this year. Look, if you bring in one to boost competition or like as just, a backup in 2026, depending on what happens with the current quarterback room, completely different conversation. I am far less standoffish. I probably even, I even encourage it, just because we don't know what's going to happen. But to see either of them as any sort of legitimate backup option or a direction that the Steelers could pivot is just laughable. That would just be a terrible situation. And then what was the second part?
You just answered it. Would it be a terrible situation? Yeah, it would be. And I agree with you. It would be like you are essentially taking a step backwards. And people will ask, they'll say, well, what about, Will Howard or Mason Rudolph? To be honest with you, I'd be better and more comfortable with in-house options to say, if next year you don't get a guy, just be okay with not having a guy. Now, if you want to go get Anthony Richardson and you want to get him for nothing and you give him a 6th round pick and he ends up being Justin Fields again, sure, why not? But it doesn't change any of your plans. You still go and try to get a quarterback early. And if you don't get a quarterback early, you still hold a competition with Will Howard and Mason Rudolph. You don't hand anybody a job in Pittsburgh next year. And I mean, it's awful, but if you're going and looking at either of these guys as starting caliber possibilities a year from now, it is wild how bad things have gotten for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because at some point you can't be the Colts anymore. At some point you can't be the Cleveland Browns anymore. You just have to be a team who could figure out their quarterback situation no matter how bad it gets. I'll ask a very straightforward question here. If next year is a matter of it could get really, really bad and it might be the tank season, but you know that you're not going to latch yourself onto another nonsense veteran quarterback and extend this BS that the Steelers are going through, or go and get a Daniel Jones, what side of the coin are you taking?
Are you suggesting that
you don't tank, but you know that it's going to be bad? You're the Saints. You're the Saints. You know it's going to be bad.
Ooh, man, I mean, talk about a total just like catch-22. There is no good option here. I mean, if we're going full on tank and the options are going to be bad either way, I think I would rather roll with like a Will Howard than bring in a Daniel Jones. But I could also, you could do the sort of not tank immediately approach, but it would really be an effort to tank if you were like, we brought in Daniel Jones, here's the next stopgap quarterback, in the same lines of the Mitch Trubisky's, in the same lines of Russell Wilson for a year, Justin Fields for a season, what have you. Daniel Jones comes in 2026. You're like, this is our starting quarterback for this year, and then we're going to figure it out in 2027, like we've been saying every year for the past 5-6 years. Well, then I think the writing would be on the wall already there as well. It's a tank season for sure. So, oof, man, the things are bad if that is a realistic option that we were talking about come, summer of 2026.
I agree.
That would just be bad.
It's almost worst case scenario. The Pittsburgh Steelers, and look at again, I'd go Anthony Richardson over Daniel Jones any day of the week. I wouldn't even think twice about it. And my only thought there would be like, this guy stinks, but you never know. Maybe, he has unreal talent and he came in super young. Do I think it develops? No, I think he's too deep into this to develop more than what he has. But at the same time, again, you just never know. Daniel Jones would be, I'd rather just hand the keys to Mason Rudolph or to Will Howard and say, what do you got, kid? Maybe it works out. Maybe it doesn't. There you go. I'd rather go draft somebody in the 2nd round next year or the 3rd round next year and say, see what you got over going that way. I think it goes backwards, and I think that's what Aaron Rodgers has done to the Pittsburgh Steelers, has shown them this offseason. Just like I'm out of options, you're out of options. It's done. You can't do this. You can't go any deeper into this nonsense because it just gets worse from here. It doesn't get any better. I think these two are yikes. God, you look like you got thoughts.
Yikes. No, and I like, this is I understand the time of the year and the off season that we're in, where like everything does have some semblance of possibility. Like there is a chance any of this could happen.
Yeah.
But man, I would stand very much by this statement I'm about to make, that Will Howard or Mason Rudolph would absolutely win, probably double the games that Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson would win for the Steelers in 2026. I just don't see how that's even really up for debate, unless one of those quarterbacks has the renaissance of all renaissances for quarterbacks. There's just nothing appealing about either of those options besides just being competition. So
I saw ESPN also predict that Daniel Jones was going to win comeback player of the year. So you never know. You never know.
Okay.
Although in my opinion, two wild takes by ESPN. Nothing else. I don't view it any other way than two wild takes. Give me your list of quarterback options, and I didn't prep you for this. Give me your list of quarterback options in 2026 from best to worst to best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Doesn't have to be, if you got specific names, they're out there, but give me your worst outcome and your best outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Best outcome, I think, is fairly easy to assess.
Yeah,
and
easy. Everybody knows it.
You get the top 10 quarterback, you get someone who's franchise altering for sure. That remains the best case scenario, will be the best case scenario, is the most likely scenario for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is you don't get any of the top quarterbacks in 2026. You still have Mason Rudolph you still have Mason Rudolph. You still have Will Howard as two of your quarterbacks on your roster, and you sign someone like Daniel Jones. You sign someone like Sam Darnold. You sign someone like who's another name that you like, Kirk Cousins or something like that, who has somehow been, he's been released after a year of not getting traded out of Atlanta. You get someone like that. You continue the cycle, as we've been kind of talking about. If you do something like that, but it isn't a Hall of Famer, 4-time MVP quarterback that you go after to sign, you're in the worst case scenario. You can put Geno Smith in there. You could put a bunch of other names in there, and I would consider them all to be worst case scenario for the Steelers, because a stopgap quarterback is just absolute nightmare fuel for 2026 and for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay, I agree. All right, you want my list? Because it's very similar to yours. Mm-hmm. The best case scenario is you find your guy, first round pick, whatever. Mm-hmm. Second best case scenario in my eyes is Aaron Rodgers looks good enough to say, come on back one more time. Let's run it. Let's do it again. Third worst case scenario is you got to give Will a shot. Will versus Mason, mano on mano. Who pulls it out? Who's your starting quarterback in 2025? Because to be honest with you, like, let's just see what happens. You know what I mean? Maybe Will's got something in it. He's going to win it. You're not going to put Mason Rudolph in a quarterback competition in Pittsburgh and have him walk away the winner. That doesn't happen. There's rules. Fourth and last. No. Fourth would be mid-round draft pick that you just fell to. Screw it. Whatever. We got to get a guy. We'll grab him. And then dead last scenario to me is bringing in a veteran who somehow found himself so available that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to go make a move and say, that's our guy post NFL draft, because it will be post NFL. They are not going to go sign a quarterback. They're not going to get a Mitch Trubisky next year, to prep for Kenny Pickett. They're just going to get Kenny Pickett. That's what they want to do. They just want a first round quarterback. So if there's a guy still available, like a Kirk Cousins or an Anthony Richardson or all these nonsense, post-draft, that is the worst outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. That's as bad as it gets, to be totally honest. Like that's worst case scenario by far.
That is them. That, oh my goodness, I think shaking in my boots right now, just kind of thinking about that possibility playing out. And I truly hadn't even considered the possibility of like a mid-round draft pick in 2026, and like that's the extra person. Either way, it's still going down that same path for me, where it's like if you don't have that guy that is genuinely, and the consensus is that he is the franchise quarterback or has the overwhelming majority to become one, you're setting this organization back even further. And I know drafting a quarterback is a very impossible task, but there are no other options. They have left themselves no other path forward to win a Super Bowl beyond this year.
I agree. All right, let's pivot and talk other quarterbacks current quarterback in 2025. That's Aaron Rodgers. There's a looming question about Aaron that I think a lot of people want to bring up. Nobody really has a guaranteed answer, but I think we have some understanding, expectation of what's going to come with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense with Aaron Rodgers being the guy. I will ask you, and then we'll dive into it a little bit. Aaron Rodgers in 2025 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You looked at Russell Wilson, didn't really have control of the offense. There's all those reports floating around from most likely Russ's side saying Arthur Smith was just running. There was no conversation at all about me changing plays. Do you like my Russ voice? I thought it was pretty good, to be honest with you. That was pretty good. I use that all the time, and I've been waiting to break that one out. And then when you looked at Justin Fields, didn't have any ability to change plays or really utilize the middle of the field because Mike Tomlin was scared. Before that, Kenny Pickett was the same way. Mitch Trubisky tried so hard to hide it from us and just not admit it, but he was told, don't throw in interceptions. Do whatever you have to do to not throw interceptions. You look at Aaron Rodgers, 4-time NFL MVP. Maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't. Has won a Super Bowl. I don't think that matters because it didn't matter to Russ. Do you look at Aaron as a guy that's going to have control of this offense? Do you look at Aaron as a guy that's going to have control of the line of scrimmage in this offense to make changes and audibles? And do you think he could make, in a situation like a 2-minute drill, say, this is my playbook, we're going to see what we could do out of it, like Ben used to do, and like a lot of quarterbacks, Aaron included, have done throughout their NFL career? What's your thoughts on his freedom in this offense?
I think he's going to have a lot more freedom than we've seen a quarterback have in the Steelers offense over the past few seasons. It's going to be drastically different than Mitch Trubisky and how tight of a leash they held him to. And it's going to be drastically different than how they treated Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as well. I think throughout Aaron Rodgers' career, he has shown that he not only wants to have that control at the line of scrimmage and over the offense, but he just will do it. So I think I have an article here from the Wisconsin State Journal from, I think, 2022. And it's Matt LaFleur talking with a journalist from the Wisconsin State Journal. And he asks him pretty much straight up, like, is there any problem with this offense right now? Because the running backs are doing really well, but it seems like a lot of running plays at the line are becoming pass plays when they develop. And he was like, do you have like anything, like any problem with that? And Matt LaFleur said, I'm going to read this right off here. Yeah, but that's always the case for us. And certainly we've got the utmost confidence in Aaron. Why wouldn't you? To make the right decisions. He's been pretty good over our time, so we'll never sit here and second guess that. I think that's an element of our offense that makes it a little bit more difficult to defend. So I think that's been something that I've seen throughout any sort of conversations coaches have surrounding Aaron Rodgers, especially after, 2011, is that they have so much trust in him and the way he sees the field, analyzes the game, that eventually, even if it's not by design, he has a very strong hand in the offense, calling audibles at the line, running the 2-minute drill. So I think he's going to have a ton of freedom. I think Arthur Smith wants to have control. I think there is an element to him not only trying to improve the offense, and there's a lot of pressure on him to improve the offense as the coordinator, but Arthur Smith is also coordinating for a head coaching job again. So a strong offensive performance is only going to help that. So he wants to show control over that, I'm sure. But when you have a 4-time MVP and future Hall of Famer, if he has input, if he wants to strong arm the offense, I think you have to let him until it goes terribly wrong.
I agree. I agree. And I think the problem with Russ is that Russ, again, was you just got to do what he could do, and it was limited. And he made plays into what he thought he was comfortable with, which is George Pickens going deep every single time, which I understand that. I get it. But with Aaron, I think he sees the field better. I think he utilizes his tight ends better. And because of that, he's able to do things and see things and go, yeah, we're going to use this up the middle. My biggest thing here is I think Aaron at 41 years old, and this goes back to what I was told during this entire negotiation process, was Aaron does not want to come in here and be anybody's savior. He wants to come in here and play football and be a really good quarterback and help his team win a Super Bowl. That's what he wants to be. And I think in New York, he had to look at it and say, I have to be the hero. I think in Green Bay at times, he had to be the hero. I think in Pittsburgh, he's going to come in here and say, I am a quarterback and a really good one, but I'm a quarterback who needs to lead this team to a Super Bowl. And to do that, we got to be really good. And I think at 41, he's probably not selfish enough in this to say, I'm going to throw the ball 45 times, but instead actually utilize what needs to be utilized to run solid offenses. That was Ben's thing, is that it wasn't always passes, like the Ben knew how to run an offense, a good one. And I think Aaron's the same way. I think Aaron's shown that a lot of times. And I think because that, I have a lot of faith. I don't look at I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but Arthur Smith, I think even coaching for a head coaching job next year, the best way you can do that is to say, I work really well with all quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like me and quarterbacks me and Aaron had a great hand in hand here, and we knew what we were doing. And there are going to be a lot of teams next year who are in a situation with a veteran quarterback who need a head coach. Arthur Smith is a name that I think could come up because of that. So I don't think it helps him to overtake the entire offense and, cause more issues with the quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a very fair way of putting it. I mean, to kind of bridge the gap here, I think the best way for the offense to succeed for both of them is to have a symbiotic relationship. Like Aaron Rodgers has very valuable feedback and information and experience that Arthur Smith hasn't really dealt with recently. No offense to like Russell Wilson, his Super Bowl winning experience, but Aaron Rodgers is a totally different breed. And so to have his input and to be sort of on the same level as sort of Arthur Smith as well, because that is my fear, basically, is it's like sort of like 2014 Green Bay Packers situation, 2015 Green Bay Packers situation, where it truly was just like no one called plays but Aaron Rodgers. And like that was like he won an MVP, I think in I have a note here for it, 2016 he won an MVP. So like some of it worked for sure, but I think at 41 to expect that to be the same thing is just not realistic anymore. So I want Rodgers to have control as a veteran quarterback who really knows the game, but I don't want it to feel like it is totally the Aaron Rodgers show every time the Steelers offense takes the field. Does that make sense?
No, I think that's the perfect happy medium. Is if the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to run an offense based on Aaron Rodgers and company, and then as he's out there, be able to change the offense. And I think that's why you have Aaron Rodgers, because when you have Aaron Rodgers, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that veteran presence that knows what he's doing back there. So in moments where things can't be normal and unique or uniform, then your quarterback can do what he's supposed to do and change the game and say, all right, instead we're doing this because this is going to work, but our current play isn't. And you can't predict that every time. So I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I think that's the happy medium the Steelers are looking for. And that's what I expect to happen with Aaron Rodgers and company, as we get into training camp. And I'm sure more and more will develop, but there's no part of me that sits around worried that other things and that this is going to be another Russ situation. Although it is a trending topic, I think, day after day, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you think how much of a role do you think DK Metcalf has just in all of this? Like, or how much pressure, I think might be a better question. Like, we've talked a lot about, the pressure on Rodgers or Arthur Smith, or sort of where does that lie? But is there anyone else on offense, maybe not even DK, but Jaylen Warren or, the offensive line, obviously, but is there anyone else where it's like that pressure is also on them to make sure that everyone, Rodgers specifically, meets the expectations that are being laid out for him.
Yeah, I think DK plays a heavy hand in that. I do, but I also think that DK, is going to get his. DK is going to eat. You're not going to have, like, Calvin's not a guy that strikes me as a come into the huddle and complain that he's not getting the ball guy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Roman Wilson will be that guy. I don't know. Robert Woods is a veteran. Who knows? DK Metcalf is going to get his. You know what I mean? He's going to walk into the huddle and be like, yeah, I just have 7 passes today. That's fine. I'm chilling. We're in a good spot. So I don't think it's going to be that way. I also think that when it comes to what the Steelers are going to do game plan wise, it is going to be so heavily involved in getting their stars the football that I think it's going to be okay. Like I don't view it to be honest as like you're going to have a drama queen that you have to tend to. I think the Steelers have tried to get rid of those. I think they've been pretty successful, and I think DK is going to have enough touches to not have to worry about that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I hear you. I think there's a lot of those 3 voices, Smith, Rodgers, DK. I feel like those are probably, the balance of those 3 voices and who's the strongest at any given time is going to be just like a constant topic throughout the rest of the season. So yeah, I hope they find a nice middle, because there's a lot of pressure from the outside, from the fan base for sure, for the $130 million wide receiver to live up to very lofty expectations, but so we'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right, that's everything on our agenda today. It's time to start diving into all of your questions. Start tossing them in the chat. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll dive into them. We'll be right back.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold Apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
All righty. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to our members as always. I know it's Friday or Thursday. It's only Thursday, but shout out to the call-in show yesterday. And make sure you're calling in to next week's. We're going to get a kick in here with James. Hey guys, I heard from a reliable source that one of the reasons why the Steelers fell off last year is because of the intense training in the 2024 offseason. What are y'all's thoughts? I don't know where the source comes from. I'm going to trust you and say that you trust your source. So great. I'll answer as if it's reliable. I don't know if the Pittsburgh Steelers fell off because of training, but I will say that if it is true, Mike Tomlin's literal words this year on why they stayed outside instead of went inside during rain and heat during minicamp and OTAs was because he said, yeah, I thought last year we eased up a little bit. So not a great sign that they're going to slow down anytime soon, which could be an issue. I'll say that I don't think the hard training's a problem, but I do think that you have to be able to moderate it and say, okay, things are getting a little chaotic. Let's slow it down. I think the worst part for the Steelers when it comes to the training is not how physical things get. They're still one of the most physical teams in the NFL, but I think it's the fact that you do not have an indoor arena during training camp. So you are always outside during training camp, and Pittsburgh's either pouring rain or 4 billion degrees from June till the end of August, and the Steelers are out in that every single day. So I think that wears and tears on you. I think that wears you out a little bit. You don't have much of a break. I think that plays a significant role into it. I don't know. The physicality, guys like TJ, guys like Cam, guys like Minka, they're not out there every day. They regulate those guys. I don't think it takes too big of a blow. I do think it obviously takes some, but I think the fact that they are one trick, you are one field, you are outside at all times in Latrobe, I think that plays a role in it for sure.
Yeah, and as you were giving your response there, I was trying to go through the last sort of few weeks, that gauntlet of the 2024 season, and I think you can make a case that, fatigue certainly didn't help, especially going against such a difficult part of their schedule. But I have a hard time believing that there's a specific part of their like off-season workout regimen that is really impacting them so much later in the regular season. And if so, ooh, that's indicative of like a really like a larger issue within like the strength and conditioning department and like sort of the directive from the organization down. So I would like to think that's not what is happening. Not that I don't trust the James's source, because of course, like, I'll take it as reliable as well. But yeah, that is. I don't think that was a huge factor, but I can see why, especially when they lost 6 in a row to end the 2024 season and looked pretty poor doing it. There's a lot of factors in play there. So
I think the stretch there played a very significant, like that was I've never seen a football stretch as bad as that one. Some teams went through it with these, some teams didn't. The Steelers were not one of them that did. I think that beat them up. I have had guys tell me, I've had quite a few guys tell me like, yeah, here compared to everywhere else is night and day. That, you come here, training camp is crazy, and you go other places and training camp is not like this. That's just the Steelers way. It doesn't work. Not always, but I don't think it's the biggest reason for sure. I think that there were inside factors that were going on. And I think the whole guys playing hero ball and all that was getting called out, I think that plays a pretty big role into what happened late in the season. Maddie here. Would you rather want Will Howard if Anthony Richardson is an option? Do they not believe that a good quarterback is not going to become available? Why don't we ride with Howard? We will have a year with Aaron Rodgers. All right. So Anthony Richardson versus Will Howard. I think that a good quarterback is still going to become available in the NFL draft. This is just Brooke Pryor playing hypotheticals. We're kind of jumping on it to see if it makes sense, which I think we both agreed it didn't. Will Howard versus Anthony Richardson. Let's remove what you'd have to give up for Anthony Richardson and just look at it as a 1-to-1. How would you play a situation with both of them in your backfield?
Oh boy. I'd have a really hard time with that competition. To answer Maddie's question, I would rather have Will Howard taking the snaps than Anthony Richardson if those two are the ones in competition for the starting quarterback role next year. Oh man, I don't think there is much that Anthony Richardson could do to change my mind about that. Yeah, it's tough. I know he's young, and I know that he still has, the chance to change this, but there's just been very limited flashes of anything from him.
Yes.
So I'd rather see what Will Howard can do, especially after a year of watching Aaron Rodgers and hopefully showing some signs of progress in training camp and in the preseason as well. But I don't think there's any real way that you can like navigate having both of them in the backfield. Do you?
No. I would set it up as a quarterback competition. I would imagine Will Howard has a slight upper hand. I think Anthony Richardson's a better player. I think he's also like quarterback IQ, ability to do things with the football, make the right moves is way behind a Will Howard. And because of that, I think Will Howard would have the upper hand in a competition there. I mean, yeah, to me, Anthony Richardson is a bottom of the barrel. Like, it should have been a pipe dream, but it's already become a Trey Lance where it's like you need to move it. You can't look at him the way that you'd want to look at him. Macaroni salad here. Shout out to Jason Cole, aka Jay. You weren't there for this one. Macaroni salad was our first call into the call-in show yesterday. Talked about how he created a drink. It's called a Sonic, Vodka Sonic. And then the caller right after that was Jay. And he talks about how he was inspired to call in after a few brewskis because of macaroni salad. So shout out to Jay. No, cousin didn't come over actually. So shout out to my boy Jake, but he's in Pittsburgh for 2 days visiting friends. He said, yo, I'm going to come over for dinner. Awesome. This kid texted me at like 2 a.m. last night. He's like, yo, dude, I've been running around all day. I'm like, you're hammered right now. Don't be don't give me the runaround. You're like, no, I know what you're doing. It's fine. I hope you have a good time. But no, I didn't make it over here.
So busy.
That's what I was like.
So
You're busy
busy.
at 2:30 in the morning, pal. No,
You
you're
free?
not.
You free right now?
Yeah, you're in Southside. We all know where you are, pal. Have a good time. No, not yet, but weekend's coming up. I might go over to might head down a cabin, good old Alan Saunders cabin, and maybe I'll introduce him to a few Vodka Sonics. Shout out to Chris here, guys. Love the job Omar Khan has done drafting players. His trading or free agent signing is my concern. Ayuk trade and not adding a swing tackle. Thoughts? I think some have been really good. Some have been really DK, I think, is an I just feel like it was a jump the gun kind of move. I like the move. I think it set them up. I think they were a little bit backed against the wall, so you could justify it because they knew they wanted to get rid of George. Patrick Queen, super cheap. Thought it was phenomenal. Darius Slay, I think, is a good move because I bet you that the conversation went, Mike, who do you want? Mike says some big giant name like DJ Reed. Omar says, yeah, dude, we can't afford that. And he goes, all right, Darius Slay. He goes, all right, yeah, we could do that one. Got him. I think Peyton Wilson's a stud. I think the drafting as a whole, to be honest with you, has been phenomenal. Like Broderick Jones, you got to wait and see. You got to give everybody 5 years before you could decide on a draft class. But I have no complaints about the Steelers draft class the last couple of years. Outside of that, the big free agent signings, I like Juan Thornhill. Deshaun Elliott turned out to be a stud. I just feel like there's a lot of good examples. Not all of them were hits. Some of them were a little aggressive, I would say. But I think all in all, the Steelers have gotten better since Omar's been in the door or in the position. That's my thoughts there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Omar Khan is one of the best general managers in the NFL, and I think a majority of that is due to how strong of a draft evaluator he is, and how sort of manipulative in the best way he is with his draft picks and getting a hold of them and using them like craftily. I think where his shortcoming is in the trade free agent sort of realm is really just on the offensive side of the ball. I think there's been a lot of struggle identifying a depth wide receiver. We've seen that sort of turnover continue despite Omar Khan coming into the role of general manager. They still are doing the Van Jefferson last year, the Robert Woods this year. It's still not cemented, or there's no real depth that feels concrete there. You can probably say the same about Isaac Seumalo is the exception for sure. And James Daniels is probably was a good signing, I would say, as well. So there's definitely exceptions to the rule for sure, but I can understand why some of the big swings that have missed, i.e. the Brandon Ayuk trade not, materializing. And I think Chris does a good job of pointing out that, there is a very obvious hole here on the offensive line right now where there is no swing tackle or true injury depth as well. So there's a few shortcomings overall, but I think they get sort of bulldozed over by all of the smart decisions, the shrewd business decisions, the cheap contracts that have turned into very impactful players. Like I think Deshaun Elliott, and the fact that he comes in on this cheap deal last year and then gets a 3-year extension after being the leading tackler is a move that sort of far outweighs, Van Jefferson not doing what maybe he could have done.
I agree. I agree. That's spot on. Like there have been some big hits that I feel very good about in free agency, and there have been some misses for sure, but I think that there's been enough good to say at least he's swinging. And that here's the biggest thing, and DK might be the first one, but there hasn't been a big giant chunky signing that Omar's made so far that hasn't worked out. Like Minka, I guess, would be like the one player that you could debate saying got paid a boatload of money, hasn't played to the level of that boatload of money. But I understood why you made the deal at the time. Yeah, Omar hasn't gone out and made a big giant mistake, and I think that that holds a lot of weight in this situation. I'm MF tired. I have to ask, how come Hookfish and Chicken never gets love on the show? The place that puts the carpet powder on the chicken fries. Unreal.
That place is awesome.
That place slaps. So I used to live in Wilkinsburg, and I'd walk to Hookfish and Chicken the one in Wilkinsburg, literally every single day, multiple times a day sometimes, when you just didn't care if you were getting fat. So it was a good time. You're right. The problem there is, like, you can't tell somebody to go to Wilkinsburg. You can't be like, hey, you want to know where you got to go check out? You got to go drive 20 minutes outside of the city where you don't want to be, really. Like, there's nothing else going on there, and go to this real shady spot that's going to have phenomenal chicken and French fries. And their fish slaps too. So it's tough to get them there. It's tough to hook them in, I would say, the hook, fish, and chicken. But you're right. You're not wrong, my friend. Fantastic food. Fantastic. Best chicken in town, I think. I would argue best chicken in town.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole podcast episode devoted to how good the chicken is in the city of Pittsburgh, because it's killer.
It's so fantastic, dude. So fantastic. Shout out. I'm glad that they got some love. Marlon Lewis here. Since they passed on this year's quarterbacks, do you think it's more likely that the Steelers get aggressive to trade up and get the guy they want, like Clint Klubnik, Neusmeyer? I got another comment that I'm going to touch on there in a second, or someone we don't even know yet. Yeah, I think that's exactly what their plan is to move up into the 5 to 10 range and get a quarterback, because there are going to be a couple of them. I don't think they're going to be able to get into the 5. I think the price range, that's why everybody will say, like, why not go get the number 1 pick in the draft? Trading up to 1 to 5 is a whole other tax bracket than trading 5 to 10. So you're not getting the second quarterback, you're getting the third. That's fine, because the first 2 went for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a third. The third one goes for 2 first-round picks and a second. Like, it's a gap. And I think that to me is why they go 5 to 10. But I think it's almost a guarantee that they go and get their guy in next year's draft. You feel different?
No, I think my only question to you is, do you see any of these guys right now? And I know we are very, very far away from the actual 2026 NFL draft, but, I've been hammering away for Lenora Sellers. I know that there's a few guys that we keep talking about that we like. Is there anyone that maybe won't get out of the top 5, Arch Manning or something like that, to throw out another example, that the Steelers would truly break the bank for, or maybe you would if you were in Omar Khan's position, to get into the top 5? Because that, I agree with you, that tax bracket thing is the perfect analogy there. Like, it costs an arm and a leg and then 3 other arms and legs to get into the first 5 picks of the NFL draft. So
yes.
Is there anyone that you would actually do that for? Or
no, I don't think so. I don't. I feel pretty comfortable with this year's draft, and things are going to change. It's June. They haven't even played a game yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have Neusmeyer. You're going to have Drew Aller. You're going to have probably Arch Manning. You're going to have Mendoza's making his way in there. Sellers is going to rise super quickly. You're going to have all of these guys. The Klubnik's going to get in there. Like, you're going to have all these guys in the top 15 picks. I think there's going to be 5 or 6 quarterbacks. I'm not totally like, I'm not breaking the bank to go get 2 if you end up with 3, like, or 4 or 5. Like, I'm okay with it. I think that they're all very good. Things could change. There could be a significant gap. It could be like, I don't even know, like, because there's not even it could be a Cam Ward to Shedeur Sanders, and that's a different situation. But if it's Caleb Johnson, Jalen, why am I blanking right now? Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, you're just looking at it going, I'm cool with these guys. Like, maybe I'd like a Jaden Daniels. That would be awesome. But sure. I also feel the rest of these guys could do very well. And I don't think I would go break the bank. Would you?
Yeah, I think if there is one that truly sets themselves apart and becomes the guy, like, I think you have to be very aggressive, especially if the plan is to make sure that 2026 is the year that you get your franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
I think it makes it worthwhile to give up a little bit more to get that guy. That being said, if you have A+ grades on all 6 of these quarterbacks, all 7 of these quarterbacks come, April 2026, hell no. There's no reason to, give up 3 extra first-round picks and second-round picks just to get a guy that will have maybe 500 yards better, in one season in the totality of their career. So I think I'm much more open to it right now, especially if a player becomes so separate from the bunch, becomes so desirable that you think he is the only one that can move this franchise forward. Yeah, I think you have to do it. And I trust Omar Khan's judgment about that right now. But if you don't feel that way and everyone is just a really good prospect, no, you just get into whatever one is the easiest to get where you can get a quality quarterback prospect.
I agree. Chris here. Henry Ruggs, maybe paroled in August. Are you out on him? Yeah, I'm totally out on him. Like, people will ask the question a million times, and my answer will be the same every single time. I'm out on him. Like, I think everybody deserves a second chance in life. Doesn't mean I'm signing them to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So yeah, I'm out. I'm out.
I'm not
Marlon Lewis. Oh, we just got this one. Shower curtain here. Why would you draft Howard and never give him a chance? Then to me, that was a wasted draft pick. Is it a wasted draft pick? If it's a 6th round, late round pick.
No,
okay.
And that's the only reason why I disagree with shower curtain there, is because it's if you see the 6th round pick again at training camp, it's not a waste of a pick, because like these players are just generally not going to have any sort of impact on your team to sweep them all, into one pile of generalizations. So if he was a 3rd round pick, if he was treated the way Mason Rudolph was treated for the entirety of his NFL career, then you're like, oh, this is kind of a waste. Why they even pick him here? But
yeah,
the last 2 rounds of the NFL draft, you're just seeing, is there anyone who's even interested in playing in the NFL at this point? And you just pick one. And the fact that they got someone who has upside is the important part there. And yes, I know Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft too, but that's those are exceptions to the rule.
Let me it's not devil's advocate, it's just a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider Chris Oladokun a wasted pick?
He's Super Bowl champion, of course not.
Two-time
Two-time
Super Bowl champion. I considered Chris Oladokun a wasted pick at the time. I did, because there was never any reps for him and no opportunity for him to grow into anything. My thing with Will Howard is I think he could grow into a long, and if that's the peak of Will Howard, I'm very okay with that. Like, that's a valuable piece to your football team. You need a backup quarterback. That's why people have backup quarterbacks for 10 years and it's the same guy, because it's so valuable to have that. If best case scenario is he turns into a franchise quarterback, awesome. But I'm not banking on him to become it. And I'm letting him earn and force his way into a competition like every 6th round pick would have to do, instead of, it's like Mark Robb. Mark Robb's not a wasted draft pick. He's just a 6th round pick that shouldn't have turned into much, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I just think that it's not a waste of a pick, whatever way you slice it. However, this ends up with Will Howard, however long or short he stays with the Steelers, it won't end up being a waste of a pick. It'll be a pretty solid 6th round draft pick, even if nothing else happens.
I agree. It's these. Hey guys, much AST love and shout out from the Lone Star State. What do you guys think the chances are that Rodgers mentoring Howard into such a player that we ignore a quarterback in next year's draft? I think, and I'll give you the realistic answer here. I think for Will Howard to force the Pittsburgh Steelers' hand into not getting a guy next year, he would need to play a minimum of 7 games in 2025, and he would have to look damn good in all 7 of those games. Like, so good that the Steelers go, all right, this guy might be it. This guy might be the guy. It can't be any less than 7. If it's 5, you still draft a quarterback. If it's 4, you still draft a quarterback. If it's 7, I feel pretty good about it. You've gotten a good sample size. You feel confident about the situation. The only reason I say that is because Justin Fields got 6 and they didn't really push that hard to get him back. 7 maybe is the number. I don't think he's going to get that, but if it were to happen, that's how I think it would have to happen.
Wow. And maybe I missed this in your response, but is it just that he would have to play those 7 games?
No. He'd have to look good. He'd have to look real good.
Yeah, okay.
Gotcha. You'd have to look great for all 7. You'd have to be a guy that you go, wow, Will Howard's got something here, man. He's got something. We might have missed it first, but he's got something.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that scenario being helpful if that is how it plays out. I think the chances of this happening or of Rodgers mentoring Howard so exceptionally well that the Steelers forego their plans for 2026 is extremely low. I'd call it, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it like a 2. And I will say this all season long and all off season long. I would love to be proven wrong about Will Howard, and I hope that he is just the best 6th round pick ever, Tom Brady included. But
could you imagine? Could you
imagine?
Okay. What I mean, that'd be the greatest story of all time. If you become the greatest 6th round quarterback of all time and surpass Tom Brady, you've officially won the NFL. Like you are the GOAT. There are 0 questions asked. I agree with you. We'll see. Look, I'm hoping but somebody reminded me the other day that there's been like 6 quarterbacks under Aaron Rodgers throughout his career. Jordan Love's the only one that we know of. So it doesn't always work out. Shout out to Russell Wilson, who beat Matt Flynn to get the starting job in Seattle. Matt Flynn, protege of Aaron Rodgers. And that's not a bad guy. That's not a dig on Rodgers. I think he's going to be great. Justin Gordon, 2nd and 4th for Ramsey and Tyreek. Pitt fans always want to put Tomlin on the hot seat. I put the front office on the hot seat. Super Bowls cost money. They do. A 2nd and a 4th for Ramsey and Tyreek. To be really honest, like I think a 2nd and a 5th, and I'm having a conversation because I think Ramsey goes for a 5th. I think Tyreek is a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, to be really honest. But maybe a 3rd and a 5th. I'd have a conversation for a 3rd and a 5th and say, all right, a 2nd and a 4th is high. I'm saying a 2nd and a 4th is high. I'd go 3rd and a 5th. And I think that's realistic.
If a 2nd round pick was included in this deal, there couldn't be any other draft picks involved. Like it would have to be just a 2nd round pick for Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill for me to feel any bit okay about that. But I mean, for the Steelers to do that, man, I don't, that doesn't seem like a very smart trade for the Steelers, in my opinion. It would be like a sick trade on Madden, and I would do it for sure. Super Bowls do cost money. The Steelers have $150 bajillion invested in their defense, so they certainly know that. I would be willing to give up a 3rd and a 5th. Maybe you could talk me into a 3rd and a 4th if there's a lot of like retained money some way. But besides that, like there's not, you'd have to make it a little bit more worth my while to be expending that sort of draft capital for those two.
I agree. I think a 3rd and a 5th gets it done realistically. You'd have to scratch the money because you can't afford both of these guys.
Right.
But if it came with that, and I think that's like, to be honest, I think a 3rd round pick is a pretty premium price for Tyreek Hill at this point in his career. And if they're willing to hold some money and make it work, I'd go with 3rd and a 5th. I wouldn't feel great about it, to be really honest with you, but I'd say, screw it. We're going to try to win a Super Bowl in 2025. Let's go make it happen. That would be my like excuse, I guess, to pull off a trade like that. But yeah, I'd go 3rd and a 5th. I'd feel good on a 3rd and a 5th. And I don't know what Tyreek's thing is. Somebody saying in the chat we could afford Tyreek Hill. I don't know what his cap hit is. I think you'd have to retain some money. I think it's in the 30s. I'm not 100%, but I think it's in the 30s. But I think a 3rd and a 5th, I'd say okay. I'd shake a hand and say, screw it. Let's go see what we could do with Tyreek Hill and DK.
And I just wouldn't want Tyreek Hill on the team. I think that's why I'm being such a like.
You wouldn't want that? I think as a media member, I would want that. I think Tyreek Hill would be a fun time. I do think
I'd love to cover him.
He's a different type of diva wide receiver, whereas in a lot of them just shut down and then just rant on social media. He'll rant, and I think that's, I think it helps. Open communication always. Yeah. Maddie here with another one. But even if we draft, Yes, even if we draft a rookie next year, won't they sit him? That's usually what the Steelers do. Why not stick with Will Howard and fix other positions? I think it all depends on how Will Howard looks. You can't just bank on Will Howard, go fix a bunch of positions, find out Will Howard sucks, and then be stuck where you are. If Will looks good and he impresses you, yeah, I think it makes a bunch of sense. But I don't think you could blindly go in and just say every draft pick is going to work out, because if that's the thought process behind that, then I don't know who they draft then Dante Kent's the next starter at slot, and Y.E. Black and Jack Sawyer and all these guys. You might as well get rid of Alex Highsmith because you have a guy like it goes every year. Mark Robb should be a starting inside linebacker. Connor Hayward could replace Pat Fryer. I mean, you can't always bank on these things to happen. If he looks good, I agree with you. I think you go out and get better positions and draft the hell out of these position players. If he doesn't look good, then you can't just bank on it. I think that's where I sit on the Will Howard stuff.
Yes, and I think there will be an exception made if the Steelers do draft a quarterback in the top 10, let's say. I think the expectation that they would sit for the entire 2026 season would have to be lowered and tempered. Like I would anticipate a top 10 quarterback. He might not be the week 1 starter hypothetically, but he would be in there pretty quickly. Tyreek Hill's cap hit is also $27.6 million for 2025.
27. Yeah, I don't think so technically they could go out and afford that, but they need to take $10 million into the season because they just do that regardless. With TJ's contract, if you went Jalen and Tyreek, I don't think you could pull it off. I'd have to sit down, but I don't think you could pull it off.
That'd be $43 million in additional cap hit for 2025, right?
Yeah, you're not getting that out of TJ. You're not getting that out of TJ. Whataburger here. You on Afternoon Drive was kick ass. Get Alan on here. We'll definitely have Alan on here. Me and Alan did have a good time. I think I laughed the entire time. Everybody go check that one out. It was hilarious hearing him read macaroni salad says shut up. I don't even know what that means. I don't either, but that's incredible. Shout out to Afternoon Drive. Shout out to Whataburger. It was a good episode. Go check it out if you guys haven't. Over on Steelers Now. Shower curtain here. Any news on TJ talks? Haven't heard anything about TJ. I would imagine that they are kind of in a lull right now, a little bit of a quiet period. They'll begin talks again, I would guess, in a couple of weeks. Right now, a lot of people go on vacation. People just kind of calm down for a little while and say, all right, I'm going to get my mind off football, and then I'll return in July. I would guess the NFL is going to do a lot of the same, and that means the Steelers going to do a lot of the same. I would imagine early July, is when we start hearing more about TJ. But for right now, I haven't heard anything about TJ and the front there. Sam here, not talking about comparing. What's the difference between JJ McCarthy and Will Howard? They seem very similar to me, other than they went in their drafts. Your thoughts on? You were big on Will coming out of the draft. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts on JJ? And do you have a comparison there?
It's a tough one for sure. There's two ways I look at this. The thing that JJ McCarthy did extremely, extremely well coming out of the University of Michigan was diagnosing plays. And the one thing that Will Howard might not have the quickness to do and might not be able to sort of fill in that gap time is diagnosing plays like JJ McCarthy did. JJ McCarthy has a lot to prove this year. I'm not going to say that he is just like a known commodity at all. He hasn't even started a game in the NFL yet. So he has a lot to prove. But when he was drafted, he had incredible footwork. He had an incredible ability to read plays and anticipate plays. And it was just something that you didn't see as much of when Will Howard was on that national championship run last year. And again, I was a big fan of Will Howard. I think he does a lot of things very well, or he did a lot of things very well in college. The other side of this coin is, we talked about Anthony Richardson earlier.
Yes.
There's a very, very compelling case to be made that the draft position I mean, it's a crapshoot for sure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
First round picks are busts, seventh round picks become important players. The variety runs the gambit. There's certainly an argument to be made that just because JJ McCarthy is a first round pick and Will Howard was a sixth round pick, does not mean that one is necessarily better than the other on draft day. The huge difference is class in, there's a million other factors that came into it as well. But yeah, I think footwork for JJ McCarthy and I think ability to diagnose the play at the line of scrimmage were two things that sort of separate him from Will Howard in terms of like an evaluation process. Yes. How that's going to play out in the NFL, I'm not 100% sure yet.
I agree. And I think Will had I think Will and JJ's class goes in that third or fourth round where you're looking at him as a guy that is better than a Spencer Rattler. Like he could come in here and maybe one day develop into something. So I don't classify Will as like a bottom of the barrel quarterback. I just classify him in a quarterback draft class where it was just better mid-round guys, I guess. Guys with weirder upside. I don't want to say better upside, weirder upside. Like maybe Jalen Milroe turns into some freak athlete. Maybe Dylan Gabriel being 5'8" doesn't matter. Like, maybe these things happen. Whereas in a normal draft class, you're looking at it going, Will Howard's better than Spencer Rattler. That's totally fine. I think JJ still would have had the edge over him, but I do like this comparison because I agree with you. I think they're both athletic. Neither of them have a crazy big arm, and they both are just like gritty guys. And I think that stands out for sure. For sure. A couple of news and notes here before we finish off. The best place in Wilkinsburg to eat is Fireside Jamaican Place. It is fire. You go on Penn Ave from that little strip from the car wash down to like the Gecko, and you don't know what you're going to get, but it's going to be good. It's going to be good. There's a couple of places. I would just walk down there sometimes and just like walk into doors and just be like, yeah, this is cool. This is the spot here for sure.
Give me some grub.
Give me some trouble. Also, we did miss one of the, and I did miss one of the backup quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers. Tom Arth. Shout out. Shout out to Tom Arth. But again, at the same time, didn't become the greatest quarterback ever. So
good coach.
Good coach. Shout out to Tom Arth. We'll finish off with these two. Ian's or Joe, how bad would it have to be to sign DJ Chark? Pretty bad. I am not a DJ Chark guy. I think he's a good wide receiver 4. Wide receiver 3. The Steelers don't need him. I look at an Amari Cooper, a Keenan Allen as a head and shoulders pick above a DJ Chark, but there's a reason that DJ Chark is still on the free agency list, and that's because teams feel the same way. I just don't think it's a feasible option. Not one that improves this team, not one that's worth signing, at the end of the day. And I think they're going to avoid the worthless signings going into the summer.
Ooh, yeah. I think bringing in DJ Chark would be akin to bringing in like Robert Woods again. You're just not getting any sort of impact beyond a depth wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out here. You told everyone to tell Alan to shut up. Big up to Macaroni. Correct. There. Shout out, dude. Shout out. And I will say this again. Everybody should go over there and I'll reiterate it one more time. Just tell him to shut up. Just tell Alan shut up. Shout out, my friend. Shout out, my friend. All right, we'll finish it with this one. Guys, which UDFA wide receiver stood out at OTAs? I'm going to go UDFA wide receiver, but I'm also going to say the UDFA that stood out to me. There's 2 of them. Wide receiver, there really wasn't one. Rock Taylor is the guy that you're watching, but I don't think he was great. Max Hurlman, to be honest with you, that kid's a stud. He came in as a running back, corner, tight end, fullback, wide receiver, and I honestly, I think he looks so good and impressive, and I think fans are going to love that guy. He's got such quick burst. His hips are so fluid. He's fast. I'm a big fan of him. Go check him out. UDFA that stood out to me, though, Sebastian Castro. If he could get his hands on a football because he dropped a couple interceptions, he's got talent. That kid's all over the place. He's got good instincts for the ball. I thought Sebastian Castro looked good. Rex Hurlman that's my winner of minicamp, to be honest with you. That guy was UDFA wise, he was a stud.
Yeah. Fair enough. I had an eye on Rock Taylor, throughout the couple of he was the one person that I really did want to see the most out of. And I can certainly say that whenever he is on the field and there's like all the focus is on him, you can see what is so enticing about him. And the size and the athleticism is definitely there. But he didn't really do anything exceptional to stand out in those 3 days at mini camp. So
I agree.
It's hard to pick just one. I think Noah kind of, hit the nail on the head there, but I still have an eye and sort of an ear towards Rock Taylor. I want to see more out of him. I want to see him get more opportunities to see if there's anything else sort of there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of promise though with this UDFA class, maybe compared to normal ones.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I think there's a couple of them I'm excited to see where they go. I'm excited to see Rock Taylor once he could be physical and once he can play a defense and see what happens. But again, like everybody had their eyes on him. We weren't the only two. Like we were standing there going, are you guys, everybody wants to know about Rock Taylor. And everybody's like, yeah, man, it's just, there's nothing to talk about. So that's where we are. But those were the names to watch. And then we'll end it with this one, Dumpster Chickens. I think we should trade Noah and Jacob for Adam and Alan and Schmitty. We'd have to give up a first rounder. Look, I'll be totally honest. I think we are worth the first round pick. I'm just going to be really, really clear there. But have been talking to Alan, have been talking to a couple of them, maybe Kaboom, about doing a little crossover episodes as we go through the dead period. We're working through them. There's some conversations to be had, but if you're in those podcasts, make sure you let them know that needs to happen. So shout out to our boys over at Steeler Now and good old Mark Caboli as always. All right, guys, with that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Please, please, please go to Apple Podcasts, hit the download button, and give us that 5-star review. I want to be in the top 10 of the Steelers Sports Podcast by the end of the year, and I can't thank you guys enough for it. As always, go find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers, and we will be back tomorrow morning. Until then, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.